I walk into the party, my friends are all behind me. They earn me all the freebies because the clothes are comfy. So which of the prints will they choose? All you do is add shoes, and then you have an outfit to rock all through the night with.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another MLM Deep Dive. Oh, and this video comes with a bonus free drinking game. You just need to take a shot every time you see an ugly outfit. They all look like, you know, when you're playing The Sims and you just press randomize when you're creating a new sim. That's what all of the outfits look like in this video. Now, let me introduce you to Deanne. She and her husband Mark are the CEOs and founders of LuLaRoe. And oh my god, what is she wearing? I think for that one we need to down an entire pint. But we won't get through the rest of the video, so don't do that. And here's everyone cheering for Deanne as she walks onto the stage. Yay, look, it's the woman who's stealing all of our money. This is literally like Bernie Madoff walking on stage and like all of the people that he stole millions from just cheering him on. MLMs are so weird. I'm surprised they're all not just like chucking money at her. Here, take my kid's college fund and the money I need for my husband's cancer treatment. Have it all, have it all, have it all. Oh my god. Look at their logo though. Have you noticed that their logo is a pyramid from above? It's the top of a pyramid. It's looking down on a pyramid. Their logo is a pyramid. It's the pyramid from Deanne and Mark's perspective. In case you weren't aware, LuLaRoe are an MLM company and alleged pyramid scheme, and they sell clothing, women's clothing. Pretty much all MLMs have pretty crazy stories, but LuLaRoe is in a league of its own. Come with me down the rabbit hole. So if you search YouTube for LuLaRoe, you get this video. What is LuLaRoe? The Untold story. So it starts with Deanne telling her cute little suburban housewife story about how the company started back in 2012. It's very well crafted, unlike many of her garments. She's a single mom with 7 children, goes to is it a meat swap? What's it called? A swap meet. Meat swap sounds like a seedy nightclub. You want to swap some meat? From what I can understand, it's a flea market. So she finds these really cute $10 dresses and she can't believe her eyes. Only $10? Personally, because I like to suck the fun out of everything, I'll probably be wondering who's actually paying for that down the line. Smells like the fear of a child. So she makes some kind of deal with the guy that runs the stall, starts selling these dresses in parties and women's homes, and she thinks she's the first person on the earth to think of this party idea, when MLMs have been throwing fun parties to steal lonely and broke women's hopes, dreams and self-esteem under the guise of making money and friends for decades.
And I started to book pop-ups. We called them dress parties.
She says she always had a dream about starting up a clothing business. One day her daughter asks her to make a maxi skirt. Her daughter posts it on Instagram. She doesn't know what Instagram even is.
Made the skirt, she posted on Instagram. I'm thinking, what is Instagram? I never even knew what it was.
Okay, boomer. Orders pour in for this maxi skirt. She starts maxi skirt party. Marky Mark quits his job as a concrete contractor to help out with the skirt party business because it's booming and Deanne is starting to get overwhelmed.
Came to me one day and he said, Deanne, I think that you're overwhelmed. I wanted to go, no kidding.
She amasses a fruitful following online, and she keeps this up to this day in a beautifully tone-deaf fashion.
We didn't want to take away from 9/11, of course, such an amazing experience. We love, and our prayers go out to those families that are going through such a hard time, but
such an amazing experience.
We're looking at a couple of different places for our first expansion out of the United States.
No, don't come for me, Marky Mark, no. We're safe from the ugly leggings people in the UK. Don't come here, please. LuLaRoe only operate in the US at the moment. I don't think they'll ever have the chance to branch outside of the US, but we'll come to that later. Now, a fun fact about Deanne and Mark is that they like to keep everything, and I mean everything, in the family. This is Kenny, one of Deanne's sons from her previous marriage.
And then they asked for our help. They wanted us to be a part of something that they were seeing success in. They didn't want it for themselves. Knowing now what that did for our family, it brought our family together.
Brought together is not the words I'd use to describe what this company has done for your family, Kenny, but more on that story later. And here we have Lindsay Wheeler.
People starting right now who are doing incredible things for their family. They are reaching their goals today, 5 years after LuLaRoe started. You didn't have to get in when it first started to be successful. You can start today and build an incredible business.
Why the fuck you lying?
It's funny that all of these like testimonial videos that these companies use tend to feature people that got in early for some reason. Fun fact, Lindsay had 2,000 people under her in LuLaRoe at her peak. She boasts how she's paid off her mortgage now, but things have since gone very downhill for LuLaRoe, and she definitely doesn't have 2,000 anymore. But more on that story later. I'm just killing you with all the foreshadowing today, aren't I? Just killing you. Is your mouth watering for the Lula tea? I won't ever say that again, I promise, I promise. Ah, look at her having a cuddle with our old friend Rachel Hollis, the plagiarizing MLM motivational preacher who seems to be bankrolled by every pyramid scheme in the US to keep brainwashed women well and truly on track all the way to Debtsville. I kind of want to read one of her books and do a review. I might do that. Deanne and Mark started LuLaRoe in 2012. After it began taking off in 2013, she announced the closure of her dress party business on Facebook at the start of 2014. As you can see, Deanne's love of punctuation was apparent from the start. Sorry to inform you that I am no longer doing the dress party business. We have moved on to our new company. Please go to our website www.lularoe.com. This business has taken off and you will love, love, love everything you see on our new website. And she wasn't wrong. When she said it had taken off, it had truly taken off, like a Gulfstream G5 private jet.
Surprise, surprise. The unexpected.
To explain the structure of the LuLaRoe business, you have 4 levels. There's the bottom level, who are just independent fashion consultants. Now, I don't want to surprise you here, but this is where you'll find the vast majority of people.
Surprise, surprise. The unexpected hits you between.
Who knew? Then there's trainer, when you get 10 people under you. Then there's coach above that, and then mentor. Again, just like Arbonne, it's the 4 levels of management, which sounds super easy, doesn't it? But it's not. So when you first start recruiting people, you get 5% of the money they spend on orders, but only if you self-order 175 pieces a month. When there's 10 people under you, you get to trainer level, and then you start making 3% off of their orders too. But only if your entire downline orders 1,750 pieces per month. This sounds totally legit and not set up in a way that would encourage inventory loading at all. For top sellers, these 3% and 5% amounts are awarded to you in the form of a bonus check, which is apparently signed for personally by Deanne. And then they send you on a special annual cruise for top sellers. Deanne and Mark makes everyone shout out the amount that was on their bonus check for that month in front of all of their peers. So that sounds totally normal and not weird and cult-like at all.
Tom, Tammy and Stacy, Tori Macy's, Trina Robbins, Trudy Holt, Victoria Robb.
So I've managed to get a hold of an income disclosure statement from 2015, but it's the only one I've ever found, so I'm assuming it's the only one they've ever released, although I might be wrong. But it's not surprising that they would want to keep this information private. Like all MLM income disclosure statements, it doesn't say how much these consultants have paid into their business, so actual profit margins are a mystery. It also doesn't include how much consultants have made from sales or closed to the public. From what I can see though, is that the average annual bonus for all consultants was $92. 87% of consultants did not receive any bonuses. 98% of distributors don't earn enough money from bonuses to recoup their initial investments. Surprise, surprise! An MLM where most people are losing money? What?
Surprise, surprise. The unexpected hits you between the.
Now, the the way in which LuLaRoe consultants order products is a bit different from other MLMs. In most MLMs, you can choose which products you want in your order, but in LuLaRoe, you pick the styles and the sizes you want. But the prints are a mystery box. Some prints are what they call unicorns because they're very rare and sought after, like the rare prints that you get in LuLaRoe that are actually nice. In a way, this helps the business as a whole. Ensuring all of your consultants having different inventory means not all of your consultants are always selling the same thing. It's also an incredibly cheap way of running the business. If your warehouse staff only have to worry about size and style and not print, voila, you can essentially just go up to that massive box of Amelia's or Julia's or Nicole's and just chuck them in a box and send them on their way. And yes, the clothing lines are named after people, mainly people in Deanne and Mark's family. Have you got the idea that they like involving their personal family and relationships in their business yet? To be fair to Deanne, even though she's a multi-millionaire, she could afford to wear much nicer clothes, but she effing rocks that LuLaRoe. She's never wearing anything else, and she loves a pattern mix. She's really thought this one through. Leopard print, roses and zigzags all in one. That skirt looks like, you know those eye migraines you get? If you know, you know. So not only does she wear the clothes herself, she has a strict rule that all female employees must wear LuLaRoe at all times. And I have a quote here from a former employee at the LuLaRoe head office. "I'm in Chanel head to toe. I'm walking in the hallway and she literally turns around and says, that's not LuLaRoe." I said, "Of course not. It's Chanel." And she immediately walked me to the warehouse and pulled some items for me, and I put them on that day. But for the consultants, if you can't choose what you're ordering, you inevitably end up with some shit prints that you can't sell. And it sits there on that rack in your LuLaRoom. Eventually, the rack in your LuLaRoom gets so overwhelmed by the weight of the unsellable clothes that it rips the brackets from the walls and it all lands on the floor. And that's the point at which you should realise that you've been scammed, you're in a cult, and you should call your dad. Consultants then desperately try pairing the ugliest prints in their inventory that they can't sell with other ugly prints in the hope of making up an outfit. When you're deer hunting at 6 with a garden party at 8, I think if I went deer hunting in that, the deer are going to be looking at you like, why is there a load of floating buttholes in that bush? Hospital gowns, but make it fashion. Used panty liners, but make it fashion. Many things that look suspiciously like vaginas, but make it fashion. Lips on your lips, but make it fashion. The carpet from your local cinema, but make it fashion. The carpet from your local cinema, but with hot dogs dropped on it, but make it fashion. When it's still autumn, but you're excited about Christmas, but you wish Santa was actually a hot young man with a brown beard, make it fashion. But make it fashion. Being haunted by a demon, but make it fashion.
I come from that corner of your closet where the shadows are the darkest.
Now, I'm not saying all LuLaRoe clothes look like Homer Simpson's Moo Moo. I believe that what Deanne did was actually find a viable gap in the market for mainly religious women, primarily of the Mormon Latter-day Saints church from which she hails, to dress modestly and comfortably but nicely, even if you're plus size. The trouble is, what Deanne and Mark did with this business is ruin it with greed, essentially, and corruption, and the clothes went downhill as a result. In the year 2015, there were 2,000 LuLaRoe consultants. This is probably a good number to have. Ideally 0, but 2,000 would make it easy enough for the vast majority of people to ignore them. It probably matched market demand at that point. But oh no, Deanne and Mark wanted more. They hired people who worked in their head office constantly just to recruit people.
We were growing so fast, I don't think the system was big enough.
In 2016, there were 30,000 consultants in the US. And in that same year, that jumped to 77,000. And the cost to buy into the business? It was at least $5,000. In 2017, the company suffered more massive growth. And I say suffered because this is when things really started going downhill. And I'm not talking Splash Mountain, I'm talking oblivion. Everything imploded.
I'll say the beginning of the end for me was almost January 2017. Like it hit 2017 and like everything changed. Everything changed.
Yeah.
With 77,000 individuals trying to sell the same cheap clothes on Facebook and the number of consultants increasing exponentially, the market became well and truly saturated. The LuLaRoe website was misleading consultants even further by only showing 5 consultants that were in their area at any one time, even though there were many more.
Buy it. Now, I've heard some whining lately also about, well, my inventory's stale. No, you're stale. Your customers are stale. Get out and find new customers.
The boom led to a decline in the quality of the clothes as LuLaRoe struggled to keep up with the demand of the amount of retailers signing up. The material used for the clothes decreased in quality and many complaints poured in about holes and rips.
If you have a slightly flawed item and your customer loves that print and loves that garment, then be of service to them, discount the product appropriately for whatever flaw might be there, and let them have that garment, okay? Don't just send everything back because you think it has a pinhole in it, or there's a nub on the thread, or some obscure little insignificant flaw.
Consultants started desperately sharing tips on how to care for the wet tissue paper-like leggings. That wasn't the only problem though. They were also mouldy. But why would they be mouldy? Well, they were left outside under a tarp because they couldn't fit in the warehouse anymore.
We get stuff delivered all the time and we wouldn't have enough room in the warehouses. There would be stacks of clothes sitting outside for days. They were strictly about getting their money and that's it.
We moved into 127,000 square feet, and that was in January of this year, and we're busting at the seams there. We got product in the parking lot. And
this boom of sign-ups had caused LuLaRoe to order a lot of stock that their warehouse could not deal with. The tarp, it would appear from the pictures, was not airtight, and they were left under the California sun all the way through summer. If any moisture was in the plastic packaging that the clothes were packaged in, eventually you'd end up with mold. There's also been stories about consultants receiving boxes of clothes with crystallized cat piss in them, with crystallized rat or mouse urine in them, clothes that had been faded from being out in the sun too long, and just a general terrible smell. Many consultants, including Roberta Blevins, complained of feeling ill because the mold they were breathing in from these clothes.
I had heart palpitations, my chest felt tight, I couldn't breathe, I was like, what the heck? I hadn't even opened the bag yet. I brought the bags home, I opened them so I could take videos and pictures so that we would have them, so I could show you guys, so you could go, oh my gosh, I have those too, I got wet leggings too, I got stinky leggings too, oh my god, and the whole rest of the day, I was in bed. I felt like I had the flu. I had the hot and cold sweats, respiratory problems, coughing, this like couldn't clear my throat. My eyes were watering like crazy. I felt disoriented. I couldn't remember. My husband was talking to me and I'm like, I'm so sorry. What did you just say? It was the weirdest thing. So if you guys are having these symptoms, please, 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 please. That was for me just looking and taking pictures of mold for like 10 minutes.
Now they have a happiness policy. Like everything at LuLaRoe, it seems, though, these policies generally a mess. They didn't implement it well. Sometimes LuLaRoe would just refund the wrong people. They'd refund the wrong amount. Many people just didn't know about the policy at all. As orders increased with the boom of consultants, back orders backed up. As you can imagine, Mark responded in a super respectful and apologetic way and didn't pass the blame onto consultants whatsoever. Quote, I didn't feel we have much to apologise for. I'm empathetic and I'm sorry that some customers had a bad experience, but I don't feel like the company is in a place where a blanket apology is necessary. People were receiving boxes of clothes that were incomplete, with many items missing. There would sometimes be a back order sheet in the box to say that it was on its way, or sometimes there'd be no sheet at all. Consultants were understandably fuming and would call LuLaRoe head office to explain, only to be left on hold for hours. Or they'd be put on a call back list and never to be called back.
Consultants were made to feel like they were crazy because their phone calls weren't being answered. You'd be on hold for 2 hours, you'd get through, your call would be dropped. They would tell you to just use the callback service. You'd use the callback service, but nobody would ever call you back. Tickets were being lost, and we were told that there was nothing wrong. There was absolutely nothing wrong, and to just work our business.
The mounting complaints against LuLaRoe prompted Mark to give a bit of a bullshit apology via a webinar.
I have a vision for this company where people come together.
he gonna cry?
And serve one another. That there's kindness, that there's love, that there's empathy, that there is an opportunity to serve others while you build a business. Question, how long do you want to be upset and angry? It is a choice. Once again, with your permission, my life philosophy is that we choose our emotions. Do you have a right to be angry? Yes, you do. How's that serving you? How does it feel to be angry? And do you want to be angry for a minute? Do you want to be angry for an hour? Do you want to be angry for a day, for a year? Those choices are up to you, because eventually, hopefully, you won't be angry any longer. But it's so much better to not be angry. It's so much better to be happy. And I'm telling you that your happiness is a choice. And so with that, let me just express once more.
LuLaRoe's stratospheric growth has also caught the attention of the FTC at this point. The FTC kind of have like a Geneva Convention for MLMs. So one of these FTC rules is that you can't set up your business in a way that would promote channel stuffing, i.e. end up with a garage full of product that you can't sell, as this means in their eyes that you're a pyramid scheme. So at this point, Mark, being worried that the FTC would shut them down, decided to suddenly change the bonus structure so that it was based on sales rather than orders. This is in fact the way that it was supposed to be since day one, had they been playing by the rules. But Mark only changed it at this point because the FTC was breathing down his neck. Jordan Brady, Deanne's son, who believes that Thanksgiving weekend is sacred sales time.
This is sacred sales time. Thursday, sacred family time. The rest of the weekend, sacred sales time.
And Lindsay Wheeler, who we met earlier, held a webinar where they attempted to explain the reasons for this change to consultants. But good old Jordan here broke the first rule of being in a pyramid scheme. Don't mention the pyramid scheme.
Lindsay, what do you say to people when they say we are a pyramid scheme?
The reason we are not a pyramid scheme is because in a pyramid scheme, you have to keep signing people up to make money because the product is not of value and people don't really want the product or continue buying the product. With LuLaRoe, the product is amazing.
Right.
You can have an incredible business with LuLaRoe if you never sign up a single person. I could not get a bonus check with LuLaRoe and I could still bring my husband home from the military based on my sales.
What's happening in January? Your bonus checks are switching from purchase.
And purchases to sales in January, right? So that takes that last piece off the table of anybody being able to say that we're a pyramid scheme because the bonuses are based on actual sales.
We need to get away from being a pyramid scheme, okay?
And you guys, I'm not panicked at all, right?
Pretty sure that's pure vodka in that thermos. Guys, I'm not panicked at all. So as a result of this policy change, LuLaRoe's revenue dropped from $250 million a month to $100 million a month.
And you guys, I'm not panicked at all, right?
Roberta Blevins, who appeared in the Vice documentary on YouTube about LuLaRoe, which I recommend watching, went from around 75 people on her team to 40 people on her team. The 40 who remained were also not selling as much as they used to. Around the same time in early 2017, Mark and Deanne realised that less people were signing up because of the sheer amount of consultants were screaming market saturation. So, Mark, again being the sharp businessman that he is, decided to introduce a 100% refund policy so that new signups would feel it was less of a risk to give it a go. This just further fueled the fire that would spark the end of LuLaRoe. Mark decided to give no expiration date or required time frame for which you need to have bought the stock to be able to return it. So, many struggling consultants saw this as a get out of leggings jail free card. An influx of unsold clothes came back. Some consultants would buy the clothes from goob sales, going out of business sales, at majorly reduced prices, and would return them to LuLaRoe for full refunds, i.e. making a profit. No proof of purchase was required by LuLaRoe to return items. By September 2017, they had paid $120 million in refunds. Realising that this might have not been the cleverest thing to do, Mark cancelled the 100% refund policy on September the 13th of that year and replaced it with one of much less favourable terms. Consultants would get at most a 90% refund. Some items would just not be refundable. So for various reasons, one of them being that LuLaRoe is in a lot of debt at this point, people who had sent back clothes back to their warehouse were left waiting months and some years for their refunds.
It's a long process to get your refund. Everybody will say, oh, everybody gets 100% back. That's not the case. If you go into these groups where people have gone out of business, some people are missing $3,000. Some people are missing this and that.
Reach out back through our return department and let them know that you have a pair of leggings with holes. We will instantly give you credit for those products. And when I say instantly, that was a poor choice of words. We don't do anything instantly around here.
Some received checks that were much less than what they were expecting. Some people just never received their refunds at all. Indebted consultants had to watch while the top sellers who were on their way to becoming millionaires were taking top seller cruises and celebrating their bonus checks.
I waited 8 months for my refund check. And in that 8 months that I was waiting for my refund, they were having their cruise. They get it all decked out, like the LuLaRoe logo is like on the stairs and on the floor. It wasn't that they didn't have the money. They did have the money. They were just choosing to spend it, spoiling their people that make them a lot of money.
The women who fell victim to the 100% buyback policy scheme included many military wives, who made up 17%, 66% were mothers. The average leftover inventory value was $4,100. And 7% receive supplemental security income, so that's designed to help the aged, blind and disabled who have little to no income. By September 2018, they only had 35,000 retailers left. Unfortunately, the period to get refunded by LuLaRoe is now over, and those who never got refunded never will. So over the last 2 years, LuLaRoe have been the subject of 37 lawsuits. In a tactic to try and not scare new consultants, LuLaRoe say that it's normal for a large company to have many ongoing lawsuits.
Knew that as part of business in America, the bigger you get, the more likely it is that you're going to get sued.
From what I can find, it's actually kind of true, although any companies that are not MLMs don't generally have lawsuits that accuse them of being pyramid schemes.
They invested thousands of dollars, believed in the brand, and bought into a dream. But tonight, women are filing a class action lawsuit accusing LuLaRoe of being a pyramid scheme.
Tonight, Liz Gilardi introduces us to several local women stuck with piles of clothes they're now desperately trying to sell.
15 of these lawsuits are federal class actions. First of all, there's an accusation of workplace racism within the warehouse. There's also a sexual harassment lawsuit against a warehouse supervisor, and the supervisor has been avoiding his deposition for a year. And then there's multiple lawsuits from consultants, including accusing LuLaRoe of being a pyramid scheme, saying they were actually employees and were never self-employed, and never own their own business despite what LuLaRoe told them. There's also lawsuits from artists who complain that LuLaRoe has stolen their artwork for their clothing. Most of these just end up being settled by LuLaRoe, who just pay the artist off. In fact, there's never been an instance where a LuLaRoe print has been noticed to be very similar to an artist's design, and then the artist has been approached about it and they've said, yes, that was bought from me. I was paid for that. Most artists are quite blasé about having their work stolen. Unfortunately, in the age of the internet, it happens quite often, but LuLaRoe are a serial offender on this scene. But why can't they just pay for prints, I hear you ask? They have enough money, and they certainly do. But the thing is, LuLaRoe wants consultants to have all different items to sell, so now there's so many of them, they simply don't have the time to come to agreements with actual artists, so they'll steal and steal, hoping most of the artists won't care, and when they do care enough to open a lawsuit, they'll just pay them off. A reactive rather than proactive system. Here's a Reddit post I found from someone saying they worked for some time in the art department. Textile designers were required to do 50 to 60 patterns each day. Colorists had to generate 200 to 300 colorways each day. Not only that, but at every hour, the designers had to yell out their numbers of how much they did total, and a fellow designer would enter it in a spreadsheet to keep track. This created an incredibly hostile working environment where it made things competitive amongst the designers. On top of that, the job was from 8 AM to 5 PM with only 30 minutes lunch break. You did have a little bit of break time throughout the day, but since you needed to hit your number during each hour, I was afraid to even take my break. Over time it wore me down and felt like there was no support from the art department. Even being amongst my fellow designers, they didn't seem to express any discontent, so I thought it was normal for them. From what I gathered, none of the designers stayed for more than a year. They either quit or were fired too early. The designers were like hamsters on a wheel, each day doing the same things over and over until they were burned out. And then they hire new designers, like myself, who didn't know any better as a young art graduate. And the next lawsuit is about sales tax. Basically, LuLaRoe ended up charging sales tax in US states where sales tax is not applicable because they charged the tax to the state that the consultant lived in rather than the end customer. They got away with this for so long because LuLaRoe used their own payment system rather than Square or PayPal or something like that to take payments. Fun fact time, PayPal and Square no longer allow MLM payments on their systems. They cause too many disputes. Funny that, isn't it? LuLaRoe blamed their software system and refunded $6 million in overpaid sales tax to consultants. Another blow which came to them in 2017. However, we don't think this is all of it. The case eventually got thrown out of court because the judge deemed it too complicated. All states have different laws regarding tax, and it was too much work to find out who was owed what. So basically, they got away with it, mostly. This is still ongoing, and to be honest, it's a little bit too complicated for me, a lowly British girl, to understand. We all pay VAT here at the same rate everywhere in the country, so it all just sorts itself out while we just sit there sipping tea and dunking our biscuits in it. So a lot of this lawsuit honestly goes over my head, but I've told you everything that I have got my head around. Now we get to the big boy lawsuit, My Dyer. My Dyer are a company that LuLaRoe had a contract with for manufacturing their clothes. They also make clothes for big companies such as Urban Outfitters and North Face. Dan Kang is the CEO of My Dyer. A quote from Dan Kang referencing the initial signing of the contract with LuLaRoe: "When they told me what they planned to do, I thought, this is going to be explosive." My Dyer now say that LuLaRoe owe them $33 million in unpaid merchandise. This lawsuit was filed in 2018, right after the buttery soft leggings hit the fan. To give a general overview of this lawsuit, My Dyer have sent millions of dollars worth of product to LuLaRoe which they never paid for. They have paperwork to back this up, and they say that LuLaRoe has sold that unpaid merchandise onto their consultants. In their contract, LuLaRoe don't have to pay My Dyer for products until LuLaRoe have received them. So LuLaRoe are accused of ordering products but then avoiding paying for them for months later by asking My Dyer to store them, incurring storage costs and manufacturing costs for My Dyer, which were never paid for, amounting in total to $33 million. My Dyer has also bought a lot of material which LuLaRoe just never used. My Dyer also accused LuLaRoe of paying back parts of invoices from time to time to keep them under the impression that eventually all of the money would be paid back. LuLaRoe also hid critical financial information from My Dyer so that they weren't aware of the financial strain that LuLaRoe was under. My Dyer accuses LuLaRoe of ordering product from other suppliers as well, which breaches their contract. On top of all of this, LuLaRoe also apparently owes $1 million to UPS for unpaid shipping. So according to Patrick Wingett's deposition, Mark is fully aware of all of this and admits to owing this money, and he doesn't really care. So to introduce you to Patrick Wingett, this man was once a celebrity in LuLaRoe. There were leggings with his face on them. One of the top sellers, Kim Roylance, sings this guy's praises in a Facebook post. Meet LuLaRoe Pro, Patrick Wingett, the designer and head of production for LuLaRoe. Did you know? He started his own denim brand that was sold in the best boutiques in the world and was worn by numerous celebrities, people like will.i.am, Ryan Seacrest. He made custom skinny jeans for each trimester of Heidi Klum's pregnancy with her first child and made Kim Kardashian a custom dress. He's been the creative director for one of the top action sports retail brands, Commune. He sold $12 million in private label designs in 1 year. He helped develop Wet Seal's Rinse Wall program. He developed Forever 21's denim program, meaning the first time that F21 introduced men's denim, it was all him. He's worked with Walmart, Kohl's, Tony Hawk, Urban Outfitters, just to name a few. He made a custom, one-of-a-kind pair of lambskin shorts that retailed for $2,000. True story, his closet and his wife's are all custom clothes. There's no product he's ever been afraid of. And when asked what his favourite LuLaRoe piece was, he said the Amelia dress. It is classic, hand-measured, done with a single needle, and one of the hardest things LuLaRoe makes. LuLaRoe is so blessed to have him. So upon Googling any of these claims, most appear to be fabricated. So in reality, before his LuLaRoe years, it seemed that Patrick started a denim company that produced jeans with diagonal zippers. And after that, he started making fixie bikes under the name Red You're Dead. And yes, you read that right, they named the company Red You're Dead, complete with glaring grammatical error, which they later tried to cover up by capitalizing the R in your to make it look like it was always meant to say Red You Are Dead. But you're not fooling anyone, Patrick. Not anyone. After that went bust, he went on to work for a company called Sexis, where he fucked up a huge order of jeans for the company, as it was his responsibility to check the fit on a fit model, and he did that in a Starbucks bathroom in the space of 15 minutes. I reckon he was probably partly given the job at LuLaRoe not for his abysmal experience in designing clothes, but rather for the fact that one of the Stidham's son-in-laws recommended him, and he probably had a lot of experience with the motivational speaking circuit.
People are so full of crap.
The pure, unvarnished, no-nonsense truth.
No more excuses. Your own damn fault.
Who has books with names such as
Grow a pair, shut up, stop whining and get a life. You're pro because you want to be. People are idiots and I can prove it. It's called work for a reason.
And my favourite,
your kids are your own fault.
This leads Patrick to be a gifted motivational speaker himself. And as you can see here, regularly spoke at LuLaRoe conventions.
I love you too. So Gymboree is closing 350 stores. True Religion's closing 27 stores. JCPenney's is closing 138 stores. Macy's 68 stores, Michael Kors 100 stores. BB 180 stores. Guess 60 stores. And the list goes on and on. How's retail doing, you all? It's doing great for us, isn't it?
So Patrick left LuLaRoe in 2018 on not so great terms with the Stidhams.
It's doing great for us, isn't it?
In November 2018, he provided a deposition for the My Dyer lawsuit, which comes with some spicy quotes. He starts with explaining how Mark would boast about avoiding taxes. He told me that California is paying me $50 million a year to live in Wyoming. It was during this time Mark Stidham purchased a multi-million ranch in Wyoming. We flew to the Wyoming ranch in a Gulfstream 4 jet, which Mark told me was his jet. The My Dyer lawsuit alleges that Mark said he was planning on buying the other ranch next door to the one he already owns so that he can have exclusive access to the river that runs between them. Patrick goes on to say how he didn't know Mark had changed the bonus policy until a few days after he had implemented it, and Patrick raised concerns about how this would affect the business and that it would lead to consultants leaving, but Mark said he had to change it because of the FTC rules about channel stuffing. Patrick goes on to say that the change caused LuLaRoe's revenue to drop from $250 million per month to $100 million per month, and active consultants dropped from 50,000 to 35,000. As a result of the sudden drop, LuLaRoe had a large amount of inventory that it could not sell, and they already had a large amount ordered from My Dyer. LuLaRoe got desperate and started doing 2-for-1 sales for consultants. He then goes on to explain the 100% refund policy and how this further put the company in jeopardy. In August 2017, Patrick was ordered to try and cancel My Dyer orders already made that were way past the cancellation date. Mark Stidham's plan, according to Patrick, was to recruit more retails to replace the ones that had left. My Dyer and LuLaRoe made an agreement that if some unwanted product was destroyed, that would reduce the amount of debt LuLaRoe would have to pay My Dyer, so $11 million worth of LuLaRoe product was destroyed. Mark told me how he could just jump ship from LuLaRoe and that he would take hundreds of millions of dollars from LuLaRoe and move to Wyoming or the Bahamas with Deanne. He would frequently tell me how he would leave the company and take its money out for his and his wife's personal benefit. Mark told me his goal was for people to ask, "Have you seen Mark?" Patrick then goes on to explain how Mark owned multiple exotic sports cars, a multi-million-dollar ranch, a private jet, and went on lavish holidays to the Bahamas and Caribbean islands, something we'll come back to later. He says that Mark complained the cost of My Dyer's productions were too high and that he had found a cheaper supplier. He didn't know what condition the new factory was in or how the workers were treated, and he allegedly didn't care. Mark allegedly said, "I don't give a shit what this new guy's factory looks like, I just want new product." He says that Mark then had a go at him for agreeing with My Dyer to destroy the 11 million worth of products, even though Mark had verbally told him to do so. So in January 2019, LuLaRoe responds officially to the lawsuit, basically saying that the documentation My Dyer had provided to prove what LuLaRoe owes them is not sufficient proof, stating that LuLaRoe would regularly pay My Dyer late and that it had never been a problem before. And why are they so mad about a measly $33 million when they'd done $1.8 billion over the years? That's less than 1%. They also said Wingate could not be trusted because he's very mazy with one of My Dyer's owners, Troy. Troy gifted Wingate a car and they plan to start up a car business together, and they bought land in Joshua Tree together with the hopes of developing it and making some money out of it. They also lent him $340,000 so he could buy a house, which I think is mortgage fraud. So My Dyer responds to this again, saying LuLaRoe have no evidence that they don't owe money, which appears to be true because their warehouse admin seems to be very poor and disorganized, like everything at LuLaRoe. It seems hiring your unqualified family members doesn't always work out great. It also appears that Deanne is dodging her deposition, probably by the advice of Mark and other high-up people at LuLaRoe. She seems to have a habit of just saying the wrong thing and being incredibly tone deaf.
Oh my gosh, I have so many followers. Bye.
Cut to October 2019, and the Washington State Attorney files a lawsuit against LuLaRoe, accusing them of being a pyramid scheme. This is the first lawsuit opened against them that accuses them of being a pyramid scheme, and the first one that's come from a governmental agency. There's a lot of resources, it's very legit. It's not a former employee that LuLaRoe can just blame, saying they're salty because their business didn't work. It's also a civil suit, and not criminal, so that means that it's white collar crime basically, and Deanne and Mark won't be tried as criminals. This lawsuit is still ongoing. And do you remember our mate Lindsay Wheeler? Well, in June 2019, she announced that she was moving from Washington to Montana. There is speculation that she's doing this to avoid the lawsuits coming down on LuLaRoe in Washington. As we saw earlier, she features in a video where Jordan and her are comparing LuLaRoe's bonus setup to a pyramid scheme. And if the lawsuit goes through and LuLaRoe is deemed a pyramid scheme in Washington, then they won't be able to operate in that state anymore. So just speculation, but it does seem very unusual that she just suddenly shut up shop and decided to move away.